Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. This is William Stringer from the Edible Valley podcast. This is the second time I've recorded this. The first was amazing. Just take my word for it. This is average at best.
And I'm Chef Jonathan Frazier, and man, we'll have some good jokes, but we've lost all those. So we're going to come at it again, and we're going to talk a little bit about umami.
Umami.
Welcome to the Edible Valley podcast.
We want to invite you as we embark on a culinary journey through the heart of Vancouver Island
From the fertile fields,
to the pristine waters of the Pacific Ocean.
we'll explore the stories behind the food that nourishes us.
Tune in to each episode as we deep dive into the flavors, the traditions, and the innovations that make this a true paradise.
Now, please join us as we explore our Edible Valley.
Okay. So, yeah, that was a slightly downbeat. I recorded, I was funny, wasn't it? Then
You were hilarious.
joke. And it was like,
You were out of control.
perfect.
I was like in stitches here. So it's probably good that my mic wasn't working.
Yeah, I was not recording. It would have been like a solo with me thinking I was the funniest guy. Now, I do want to repeat the joke, and I'm going to try and make you know exactly what I'm going to say now. But we're doing umami. Now, usually around Sunday night, we record on Tuesday, so we start texting each other, and we're like, okay, what are we going to do the podcast about? We're available Tuesday night. And you are an esteemed person in this community, apparently. Okay.
According to
Should we go through your accolades? No, head chef at the Atlas for years, owner and chef at Locals. What's the latest?
Oh, yeah. I'm an instructor.
North Island College
now,
instructor. There we go. All right. So what would you think this stand-up guy, this pillar of the community, would answer me when I said, what is the podcast about this week?
It may have come across as mummy.
No,
It was
don't
like,
try and
"Your
say
mummy."
that. You wrote, you told me, you said your mother. And I said, how old are you? It's funny, but how old are you?
I was dictating to my phone.
Yeah.
I was in the middle of something, and I was literally like umami, and it would come up, your mom.
Your mum.
And I'd be like, no, umami. And it'd be like, no, your mommy. And then like,
It's-
I guess we're just
And the funny thing is, and I told Eva this the other day, so I'm a realtor at Royal LePage, and I was talking to another realtor, a wonderful chap. I will not tell you his name because I don't know how much you know, but he has got an amazing sense of humor. Anyway, we walked into the office and I said, oh, mate, you're really well dressed today. Yeah, I got a big presentation or a big meeting. I said, oh, with who? And he was like, oh, I want to say your mum. You're 40. We can't be doing this anymore. So if you are someone that finds yourself with these immature jokes, we love them too.
That's right.
Always going to be young.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what
That's one way to put it.
most of our outtakes are all about.
Now, let's talk about umami.
Right.
This is something I genuinely don't know anything about. I usually pretend I don't know anything. This time I mean it. What
Right.
is umami?
We're gonna take a little step back here, and we're gonna talk about taste, right?
Okay.
How we taste, how we take in flavors, right? So what we want to talk about
Like
is
sweet and salty.
exactly our
Yeah.
we have four major senses that
Okay.
we've always gone by. So yes, sweet, sour, salty,
Wet and dry.
and bitter.
Oh.
Not wet and dry.
Oh,
that's your
okay.
vacuum
Because if
cleaner.
it's dry, you add mayonnaise, problem solved. Just saying.
That's how you do
Cut.
it.
Absolutely.
Anyways, so moving forward, so how our tongue is developed is that we taste sweet on the tip of our tongue because that's where we identify sugars and
Okay.
sweetness. So it's like energy. It's food we really want to eat and stuff like that. Whereas more of bitter on the back gives us on the back of our tongue is one of those tastes we get that sort of shows that it's maybe not something that's good for us. So it's almost like there for that gag reflex. For the full extreme
So
of how
sours
we-
at the back.
sours at the back.
Interesting.
And, yeah, and sweet and all that in the front,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And then
okay.
salty on the
I
side.
get it. Yeah.
Now, of course, when we eat things that like most of our food travels over all of those. So it's
Mm.
very hard for us to distinguish in one area.
yeah.
But if you've ever done that little thing where you take like lemon juice on a pin or something and put it on different points of your tongue, you get a different sensation of what that lemon tastes like.
No.
Oh, you should have. This is something we should be doing right now. No.
This is really learning today. Okay. Amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, anyways, back in the day, this came out of Japan.
Okay.
There was a doctor, I'm going to totally mess up his name. Kyaku Kieda?
Yes,
The
well done. As
doctor?
someone who is
I
very
probably
Japanese, I
very
can tell you that is
yes.
perfect.
And here's today at the college, we had a group from Japan in actually making ramen for the whole college
Oh, nice.
today to sample. And that's where we really got to taste these flavors. So that's part of the reason I wanted to talk about this today.
Nice.
But the umami flavors, he realized that it was that extra taste that we tasted, you know, the intensity of the food that we're tasting,
Yep.
right? So
There's a totality.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like when you taste stuff, it tastes good, but this is just that next level of tasting. And he realized when you combined some seaweeds like kombu in and something with like asparagus in that broth, the asparagus tastes just so much stronger. Anyways, they realized after doing all the research that it was the glutamates in that food. So it's one of those amino acids in our diets that actually intensifies the flavor of it. And so most food we have out there has glutamates in it because there's, 22 essential acids that make up all proteins.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you think about
This is getting proper scientific.
this gets a little crazy. And if you
Yeah.
think about it, the alphabet has 26 letters and how many combinations of how many words we have. You can think about how many combinations of amino acids that we can connect together. But we found that this glutamate intensifies those flavors. And so this is where this fifth flavor has come from. And it's really setting us up. And it's what a lot of chefs knew about for years and years, but there was just that hidden secret, right? Because they didn't
Yeah,
know
like an
how
open-
to
yeah.
get those intense flavors. So it's basically trying to take things to manipulate them to pull that extra flavoring out of it. And there's lots of vegetables and proteins. It's in like most meats and stuff like that. So how do you intensify those flavors to bring us that umami flavor?
Yeah. Okay. This is one of the least of my skills. One of the reasons I love going into restaurants, to good restaurants, is when they combine flavors that you wouldn't have thought of, or where they add depth. I'm not just saying this, but I got this in locals. We had such amazing food in there, and in locals, there's often 7 or 8 depth layers to everything.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, whoa, and you have no idea how they do it. You're never going to make it yourself, but it's got that total kind of satisfaction as opposed to, oh, that's beef, that's cheesy, which is the majority of my diet.
Anyways, so that glutamate in the MSG, right? So adding a little bit of the MSG into your food brings that flavoring out.
Okay.
And so it's just an interesting way. So a lot of, I would say, Asian foods use a lot of MSG. And it was one of those stipulations that a lot of people thought MSG was bad for you.
And it's not?
And it's not. It's actually not. It's one of those ones, it's almost a bit of racism that sort of played into it, with a lot of people saying that they went to Chinese food restaurants to eat, and then they came home and they had huge migraines and they felt sick and they didn't feel good after that.
So it's called MSG.
And they instantly put that on MSG. Now, the problem probably was, and this is what I feel that we have with a lot of Chinese food, and especially North American Chinese food.
Yeah.
I don't want to say, if
food.
you're in China,
Yeah.
you're going to get amazing dishes that'll blow your mind. Chinese food that we sort of North Americanize is very different from there, right? But a lot of them, they put a lot of sugars and sweets, or like teriyaki, sweet and sour, and all those. So I honestly feel like it's the amount of sugar that people were intaking from what they were eating there that was what was like really wrecking it for them, right?
Everyone knows when they go in a Chinese buffet or Indian buffet that it's probably not like it is in those countries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit, you have to work with what you have here, right?
Yeah.
And I love, like, Chinese food is such amazing for me, not just for the flavors and tastes and all that stuff, but even if you look at how you can get Chinese food at any place in North America, that all is roughly the same style of food, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's all got that. If you're going to get sweet and sour pork, pretty much anywhere you're going to get the same sort of sweet and sour pork, which is incredible that they have the standard of keeping that food so consistent that they are up there with McDonald's and able to create burgers
Without often actually having that direct communication.
Yeah, which I always like this. I wish most French restaurants could keep up to that standard. But let's talk about some of the foods that really bring out these umami flavors. So there's certain things like miso, soy sauce, Another one is Parmesan cheese.
Oh, really?
Actually, yeah, it has a lot of umami flavors into it. So that's one of those ones, if you add it into your foods, how it brightens up your food and makes it.
So-
Just thinking about your spaghetti, right?
Sometimes people sit at the side of the road with a table and a sign, and it says a statement and then says, convince me, or something like that. I thought of one I want to do in downtown Courtney. Parmesan is just Italian cheddar. Convince me otherwise. It's true, isn't it? Do you think anyone actually could convince you wrong? It's the same thing.
No, you know
You
what?
just degraded the small.
You know what? You know what? We're going to do another podcast. Well,
It's Italian cheddar. I'll have some Italian cheddar on that, please. Thanks very much.
anyways, so that's one of those great ones. Cured meats have a lot of it too. Here's one is like anchovies. Anchovies
So
with
lovely
that
and salty.
briny thing. Yeah, and even roasted tomatoes. Like
Yeah.
roasting tomatoes brings out a real strong umami flavor to them. As well as one of my favorite ones that I'm using in a lot of my cooking now is mushrooms.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I actually really like adding a little bit of dried mushroom,
Okay.
just dried mushroom
Yeah.
powder at the end of it because it brings out a little bit, especially in deeper dishes,
Yeah.
something heavier. I'm just
It
putting a
brings it
little
out,
bit of
okay.
that. Yeah, it just
Yeah.
adds a little bit of flavor in the background. I'm
Amazing.
not trying to overpower it, make
Yeah.
it taste like mushrooms.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get that umami flavor in there
Out.
to accent, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
It's that seasoning, right? It's not to overpower the flavors, to enhance it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that's what
Perfect.
umami does. It just enhances those flavors and it makes them more addictive, right? Like you want to eat this because it's just got this much more flavor. It's actually amazing that they used to say the Romans used to make a sauce, I believe,
they?
with anchovies, and it was a briny sauce. It was one of the first marketable things around the Roman Empire.
Really?
And it was literally umami flavoring. Like it was literally, you put it on, it was like ketchup or something. Like
Can you
even
imagine?
ketchup. So I'm blanking on what the sauce was, but it was one of those
Yeah.
ones, and they've actually done studies. And,
Roman sauce.
and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
ketchup is roasted tomato, so it's got that umami flavor. So that's why we add it to our French fries and all those kind of things, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it crazy how it's evolved over the years?
Has
right?
mayonnaise got anything like that? Because I wouldn't touch ketchup, but I would go for mayonnaise.
Well, of course, because it's got nice seasoning and
Yeah.
and it's gonna just amplify your flavor of what you're tasting.
It
It's
makes
also
everything
one of
lovely
those
and
ones
fatty.
that coats your tongue. Yeah, it's also just gone out with umami because of the rich flavor.
Mm.
And I can tell you this from the ramen bowl I had today,
Really?
because they did this beautiful broth, right? And it was like they roasted the bones for a good 30 hours just in a stock pot boiling. And just the intense flavors that came out of there, it was that real umami flavor that
Yeah.
just was like, it was just rich, very beautiful, and just coated your whole mouth. And the sense of that too, like I ate that ramen bowl, which was probably not, it wasn't a lot of noodles,
Yeah.
but at the end of it, I was so full because I'd eaten, it just satisfied all
Yeah,
those things. And so
yeah.
for most of the rest of the day, I was just walking around. I'm like, okay, I didn't even have dinner before I came here. As I was like, no, I still got that ramen
Totally
going.
fine.
So,
That's a nice feeling, actually. That's a nice feeling.
so yeah, as we're talking about, there's lots of ways to incorporate umami into your food, right? So just simple as like when you're doing stir fries and that, throwing a little bit of soy sauce in there, right? It's got
Yeah.
that rich flavor.
Oh, yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
natural
tiny bit.
taste in there. I just like adding a little soy sauce
Mm.
to a few things, right? It'll just really intensify that.
Oh, that
As-
actually reminds me, actually. Add soy sauce to my shopping list. I used the last of it the other day
Oh,
for
yeah.
my jerk marinade.
It's a life changer.
Really?
Of course, doing a little Parmesan cheese on top of your pastas,
Nice.
on top of all your
Italian
food.
cheddar.
It's just going to, it wills Italian cheddar. It's just going to intensify those flavors. As I was saying, roasted tomatoes in a sauce. Like you got your nice tomato sauce. Throw a couple tomatoes in the oven while you're making your sauce. Just let them roast up. Get that caramelized flavor on there. Fire those in there.
Yeah.
They're just going to bring it.
Yeah.
They're just going to round it all together. There's also, we're talking about, I'm saying dried mushrooms. I was suggesting just a little bit on there. Another one is nutritional yeast.
Oh, I love that stuff. Gorgeous on popcorn.
Yeah, it's just a nice flavor. It's that was that they started selling it as the artificial Italian cheddar.
Yeah, unbelievable. With all the wrong things that are going on with the world these days, when I see nutritional yeast, I just think, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, and so I think just like looking at those sort of things and just when you're making your recipes and you're cooking at home, bringing some of those flavors into play.
Yeah.
Try it out. Throw a little bit of soy sauce. isn't big on a lot of people's things. We did a podcast about it, and we should do some more on it, but seaweed as in our diets.
Oh, yeah, apparently that is a superfood, isn't it, officially?
It is super, like there's so many amazing things, how fast it grows, how many vitamins are in it.
Yeah.
It's just hard to process and it's hard to get onto the plate, right? And it's hard to make it into something that people
I'm amazed
are
you don't
into
see
it.
it more, but it
Yeah.
is, every time I've had it, I found it.
I'm even like, I was using in the ice cream for a while. I had the dried kelp.
Really?
Yeah. And so I was using that as an umami flavoring a lot of things. And I was throwing it into soups and that. I was literally got this bag of dried ground kelp.
Nice.
And wasn't too sure what to do. So I just started playing with it and it just brought around some really nice flavors. And it was just beautiful. So that's something you can look into too. You're keen to experiment and get out there and go.
Amazing. I've learned something new.
Yeah.
Thank you. We should change the podcast name. John tells us stuff. Slightly less catchy. Less catch. I like it. I'm learning. Awesome. All right. Thank you very much. Any idea what we're doing next week?
We're going to do a little bit of the same. Probably argue about Parmesan cheese a little bit more.
Italian
And I'll
cheddar?
be like, I think we can go a little bit better than that. There's different styles of Parmesan cheese and
Marble, medium. I know. I'm aware
it's
of
going to
that.
be a long podcast.
All right. Thank you for joining us. We had a very good time and we're very happy you joined us. So thank you very much indeed. Thanks to 98.9 Jet FM, the Comox Valley's best rock. We're using their state-of-the-art downtown Courtney studio, and they did just change their whole software.
Oh,
And I hear that the hosts did very well.
did they?
Yeah, because trust me, it's stressful. So hats off to all of them for that. But for now, from us at the Edible Valley Podcast, thanks for listening. My name is William Stringer.
I'm Chef Jonathan Frazier.
Have a great one.